we have Grace Hopper as our third nomination, and our friend John Ellis will tell us all about Grace. Over to you, John.
Wonderful. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Wonderful. So yes, Grace Hopper. Picture there of her back in the day. So this is late 50s. Originally Grace Murray, but she had married obviously Mr. Hopper. Unfortunately for her, she divorced him in 1945. She's got a PhD in maths from Yale. She tried to join the US Navy at the beginning of the Second World War, but was refused because apparently she was too old at 34. So she joined the reserves and stayed there for many years. In 1944, she joined the Harvard Mark I team. 5 years later, she joined the UNIVAC team. And then in 1952, she wrote her first English terms compiler, something that would interpret words. In those days, they were called linkers, which reminds me back of my earlier days in programming. In 1959, she wrote the Flowmatic programming language, which, together with others that she worked with later, a year later, well, same year, became what we now know as COBOL, which from the late 70s through to the mid 90s kept me in gainful employment. So it really is her mainstay is COBOL. Developed in the 50s, and it was created. The group of people got together, but basically all based around her ideas on English language instructions for a computer. And so the common business orientated language, which we all came to know, and that was done with her Flowmatic, UNIVAC's Amico, and IBM's Comtran groups. But basically it was her brainchild. I found this quite astounding. So it may be a year out of date, but Reuters, they think there's at least 220 billion lines of code still out there. I apologize for any of the people that have still got some of mine. And it's still in use. 43% of banking systems, even the ATM machines, use COBOL. Maybe it's just more secure than some of the more modern languages. And I did a lot of work in the 90s for insurance companies, and all their backends are still written in COBOL. Many of them are still running what now we use online. The backend quote engines are still in COBOL. As a language, it's been with us since the 60s, and it's going to be with us for a lot longer. Several reasons. Prime one being is that to replace COBOL code with something else is extortionately expensive. The Australians, even nearly 10 years ago, it was going to cost them $750 million just to change it in one organization. And bizarrely, COBOL is still being developed as a programming language. You can get it for PCs. There is Visual COBOL. There's COBOL.net, which will interface obviously with Microsoft products. And so keeping upgrading it in the latest version of the language is just a lot cheaper. And I think in America currently there are 75 schools that still teach COBOL as a programming language. So back to more of Grace. In 1966, she retired from the Navy Reserve, having got the rank of commander. And within a few months, she was recalled back to the Navy because they were having such problems with the amount of different languages, programs that they were using. So they asked her to sort it out for them. And she retired from the Navy when she was 79 as a Rear Admiral. And as it says there, she's the oldest serving officer in the US Armed Forces. You've got to go some for that. She carried on working at DEC for a few years until 1992 when she died. and she's buried in Arlington Cemetery. This is just some of her legacy. Obviously, she was made a rear admiral. She had 40 honorary degrees. There are loads of institutions and other bursaries, etc., that are named after her. The Wilbur Lucius Cross Medal awarded to her. First American to become a Distinguished Fellow of the British Computer Society. So that's quite a statement. In 1991, President Bush awarded her the National Medal of Technology. In 96, the Navy named a ship after her, a guided military destroyer. And I think that's still out there at the moment. In 2016, Barack Obama gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Unfortunately, she'd already died then, but still a great award to be given. Well, she opened up programming to the business world. COBOL programming was used across the world, from local government to food retail industries, to banking, to I'm trying to get any business process, invoicing, etc. The systems of the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s easily were written in COBOL. Obviously, as PCs came along, different languages appeared, but even there, COBOL carried on. Personally, I see at least another 20 years of developing in COBOL, possibly a lot longer. Her achievements have inspired men and women all over the world and still do so. And final thought is, if you come across any of my code, some of it's good, some of it's bad, but I'm sure it'll keep you employed. And thank you very much. There you go.
Thank you, John. Thank you once again for your attendance. Have a good day.
Thank you for hosting it, Paul.